welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are doing the final video for this year's Christmas in July tags, and we are going to be using penguins. I am a sucker for penguins. They are my favorite animal, and I have this Sunny Studios Penguin Pals stamp set that I'm going to be using today. I also have this My Favorite Things fold up tags die set that I'm going to be using, and then I pulled some Simon Says stamp and some Concord and 9th inks today. I will be incorporating some more later on. How I was going to color these kind of changed, and so I'll let you know what colors those are when we get there. But I went to my stash and picked this color combination. I thought that was as traditional as I can as I can manage. I mentioned in previous videos that I just am not a huge fan of traditional red and green for Christmas, and so I chose to incorporate kind of a couple other colors that are maybe not quite so traditional red and green, but there's still some red and green in there. How these tags work is you have like a base piece, and then you have a fold-up part that has some interesting borders on it. And then there also is a like hole reinforcer and this little kind of bridge piece that I showed before. So like I said, I'm going to be using some Concord and 9th. I've got Evergreen and Parsley, and then from Simon I had Cherry and Tidepool. So I'm showing you me using my Misty, but I ended up just stamping this one with an acrylic block. This stamp set has tons of little snowflakes in it, and I thought those would be really good. I really wanted a tone-on-tone background for these tags to kind of pop off, and I was going to use my Misty because I thought, okay, well, I'm going to be repeat stamping these, so the Misty will be the best. It wasn't. I ended up ditching this and going with an acrylic block. The acrylic block was just easier, and so I'm taking the Evergreen ink on this kind of dark colored cardstock. This is from Lessebo Colours. This color is Evergreen. The red is Red Rose. The kind of pool color is Park Green from Colorplan. And then I apologize, I do not know what color that kind of limey green is, but that is also from Cardstock Warehouse. The packaging wasn't labeled, so I can't tell you where that was from. To make cleanup a little bit easier, I did use just a scrap piece of paper to stamp the snowflakes on, and I just repeat this for all of the colors. So for this kind of limey green color, I'm going to use the Parsley from Concord and 9th, and for the Tidepool color, I'm going to use the Tidepool ink from Simon, and then for the final kind of traditional Christmas red color, I'm going to be using Cherry. And I just go through and randomly stamp these snowflakes on this little tag shape here. There's no rhyme or reason. I didn't really want them to overlap, but it wasn't a big deal if they did. Some of them I didn't necessarily get a very good like inky impression, so it looks even lighter, which was kind of a happy accident. I kind of liked how that looked. So I didn't want these to be super precise. I wanted them to feel like I cut these tags from a piece of patterned paper. So sometimes the snowflakes go off the edge of the tag there, and that makes it look more like you cut it from a piece of patterned paper. For our little penguins today, I am using some CANSON XL watercolor paper. I purchased this forevers and evers ago. It's been in my stash for a long time, and I picked 3 of the penguins from this stamp set, and I'm going to use one of them, the one with the scarf, twice. I really liked these ones. There are some penguins that are just kind of in different poses, but they don't really have any like wintry accessories on them, and I like the ones that have the wintry accessories. So I'm stamping this in some VERSAFINE Onyx Black ink, which is a waterproof ink. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do some watercoloring using the same inks that we stamped with on the color background tags. This one is the one that I wanted 2 of, so I'm just going to peel that up and drop it down and stamp that one again. To cut these out, you could fussy cut them, but I took them to my brother's Scan and Cut and had it cut it. It didn't do a perfect job. I think I need to recalibrate some settings, but it did well enough for what I was trying to accomplish today. And then I am taping these from the back. So I'm flipped at that panel that I cut these penguins from, and I just am taping them temporarily to the back. This is so I have a bigger piece to kind of move around as I'm trying to watercolor instead of chasing around these smaller pieces. I could have waited to cut them until after I had watercolored, but I was worried that my brother's Scan and Cut would get confused by the colors. And so it seems to do a little bit better job of finding things if I have it cut black and white first. So here what you see me doing is I am just smushing some of this ink onto my work surface here. I have some black soot, that is a Distress Oxide ink, and then I have Cappuccino from Simon, and I have Sherbet from Simon, and I think that's it. I think those are the only colors I added, yeah. And then we're using the same colors that we stamped on our background tags, our color tags. I'm using my Altenew watercolor brushes. I am telling you right now, I've only used these like twice. And I am loving them. They feel nice in my hand. They hold pigment well. They hold water well. They don't shed. The bristles keep their shape. I've just really liked them. So I do a variety of, now full disclaimer, I am not very good at watercoloring. It's something that I like the look of, but my ability to accomplish that look is very small, and that's because I don't practice it. I mean, that's just being honest. So I do no shading here, but I wanted to have these colors be a little more vibrant. So some of them were very, very pale when I was coloring them, and some of them were fine. I was fine with like the first application. So the black, I'm using the black soot from Ranger and Tim Holtz. And what I did is I took clean water and I put it where I wanted the pigment to go. Wherever you have water is where your pigment is going to go. One of the things that you could do to help this be a little bit simpler if you are still learning, or if you're kind of in a hurry and need to apply your pigment quickly, is you could have heat embossed this. That would give you essentially like little wells or walls that would help the pigment from running. I do have a couple places where it started to run, and that's just because I'm not used to this medium. It's not my medium of choice, but I wanted to do something a little bit different, and so that's what I chose to do today. But it shows in some of the images that that's not my forte, because you can see where it bled a little bit. Was it bad enough that I was going to trash it and start over? No. Keep in mind, these are tags. So in my mind, tags are going to be ripped off the package and chucked in the trash. So spending lots and lots of time on them, putting, tons of effort is not where I would focus my energy when it's a tag. If it's a card, something that I feel like is going to go on display, or that I know the individual will keep for a long time, I would put more effort into it. But this was just a fun way to use these watercolor brushes, and to also use my inks in a different way, and to give me just a little bit of practice, with this medium. So I just went through, and anywhere where I wanted black, I did all of the black. By the time I got to the first place I had watercolored, it was dry. I used very, very little water, but I did what is called a wet on wet technique. And all that means is that you apply clean water to where you want to apply your pigment, and then you drop in the pigment. And then in some places I would do a dry technique. So I would have essentially dry paper and apply wet pigment to it. So that's a wet on dry technique. It depended on if I wanted more vibrancy, which I did on the penguins' noses and feet, or beaks and feet, and then the scarfs on one spot, and the I think I did it on a head, or a head. I did it on a hat. I wanted a little bit more vibrancy. And that is where I would incorporate that wet on dry technique, particularly for the TIDEPOOL and the orange, so the SHERBET. That really did give me a little bit more vibrancy. If I was going to get fancy or try to practice more, I would use that wet on dry technique to add shading. You can always have the wet pigment go onto the dry paper and take just a little bit of water and help blend that out. But like I said, these are tags. They're going to get chucked in the trash more than likely. And so that wasn't, I didn't feel it necessary to add lots of shading. This, to note, is way more pigment than I would ever need. I could do a lifetime's worth almost of images. These are really small images. And so this was a lot more ink than I would have needed. You could actually use traditional watercolors if you wanted to. I've seen people watercolor with the Tim Holtz mica sprays. That is something that I want to give a try to, but for these particular tags, I wanted to keep them a little more simple. And I didn't want to dive into a completely different medium. I haven't even used those yet, so I didn't want to break out with a completely different medium. So all of the watercoloring is done now, and I'm just trying to clean up some spots where my ink started to bleed. And I'm just using a Sakura Jelly Roll pen to do that. This is a 0.08. Does it hide it completely? No. Does it clean it up well enough that I would feel comfortable putting it on a package? Yes. And I just went around and did that. I popped those out of their little holding spot, and now I'm going to go ahead and start adhering things together. So I'm just going to use some liquid glue, and above that, it's probably about a half an inch or so, maybe 3/4 of an inch, like fold line, I'm going to apply some liquid glue. And then I'm going to use the coordinating little fold reinforcer, I guess, in the coordinating color to put that on top. I could have stamped more of those snowflakes on that little fold reinforcer. I just didn't. I chose not to. I kind of liked the variation that gave, but that's absolutely something you could do. I felt like these little guys needed some more fun. They were kind of cute, adhered flat, and that's kind of how my inspiration came from. But as I was looking at them, I was like, nah, these need to wobble. These are a penguin. They need some movement. So I have these action wobbles. I think I purchased these off of Amazon months ago, months and months ago. And all I'm doing is I don't trust the adhesive on these things. I've had them fall off before, and I don't want them to fall off on a tag. So I am just going to apply a little bit of liquid adhesive, and there is a really thin, clear part, and I am applying that to my image. And then there is a thicker white plastic part, and I'm applying that to the actual white cardstock that's on the tag. I found that this was the best way to do that, but really I don't know that it truly matters, because you're not actually seeing, these images are large enough that you're not actually seeing any of that pop-up that spring, that pop-up mechanism. But if you were, you may want to be more careful of where you're applying what. But in my case, that wasn't really an issue. So I'm just going to continue that where the clear part goes onto my little penguin, and the white part goes on the cardstock. I apologize if you can hear my son in the background. He decided to drive the go-kart, and so you can hear it. Got to do what you got to do. I've only got a limited amount of time, people. So I'm just going to continue that for all of these. And then that is all these little tags complete. So here that you are seeing them kind of wiggle. I think it's super fun. And you could put any kind of critter or flower or whatever you wanted on there, and it would be really, really cute. So that is it. I'm showing you how they fold really flat, but then they pop up and they wiggle. So this is all of the tags for today. And for this series, I appreciate you spending time with me. I hope you felt inspired. I hope you enjoyed this series, and I hope that it helped you to maybe work in your Christmas crafting, but also give you ideas for just any gender, any reason, any season, any occasion, adapting this kind of format for whatever needs you have. So again, I appreciate you spending time with me, and we will see you next time. Bye.